Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, I was talking with a federal employee just the other day, and they told me this. They said they were at the water cooler at work, right? The proverbial water cooler. And they said, look, they were telling their coworkers about their retirement plans. And their coworkers all said, oh, haven't you moved to the G Fund then? You're retiring? So you better move your TSP, your thrift savings plan, all to the G Fund, right? That's what you do in retirement. So that is what they did, not realizing the ginormous decision they were making in that moment. And it is one of the biggest retirement killers that we see every day when they don't understand the impact of how they're investing and what that means for the rest of their life. So today, let's talk about the G Fund and when it makes sense, when it is a terrible thing, even though it feels like the right thing to do sometimes. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. So good to have you. My name is Dallin Hawes. I'm a financial planner who serves federal employees every day, and I love it. So let's talk about the G Fund. If you're not super familiar with this, in the TSP, in the government's 401k, as you know, there's an option called the G Fund. It's a very popular option. The G Fund is guaranteed never to go down in value. It's also guaranteed not to grow much because it doesn't grow, right? It creeps along kind of like this. It doesn't ever go down, just creeps along. And over time, it barely keeps up with inflation sometimes, okay? So long story short, what's the problem? Many people go into retirement and they want to preserve the wealth they've worked so hard to build and save and invest. They've worked so hard for that money and they get nervous. They go into retirement and say, look, I don't want to take any risk. I want to put everything into the G Fund so I guarantee that money is there for them. And I totally understand it. But just please today, I want to help you understand what that means. And while the G Fund feels safe, there's a huge risk you are taking if you have too much money in safe investments like the G Fund. And this is it. Long story short. Yes, if you're in the G Fund, you're guaranteed not to have fluctuations like that, right? Up and down. You're guaranteed not to have that. Guaranteed in the short term. However, being in the G Fund for long term, mid to long term, guarantees that your money after inflation is basically going to have no growth after inflation. So your money is barely going to keep up with that over time. And if you want to take withdrawals over time, your buying power over time gets depleted exceptionally fast. So in the short term, within a year or two, maybe 5 years, the G Fund feels like the right answer, especially during down markets. When everyone is freaking out, you're like, look, I'm in a G Fund. I don't have to worry about that. It feels good. It's a short-term victory that guarantees you lose the war. You win the short-term battle, but it guarantees you lose the long-term war. Because, well, here's the deal. I guess if your goal is to make sure your money can keep up with inflation and actually keep growing a little bit beyond inflation over time, and you want to be able to enjoy your money, take withdrawals, actually enjoy it, again, the G Fund is probably not a good fit for you. Let me explain why. In many other videos, I've spoken about the 4% rule. It's a rule that says, look, if you want to never worry about running out, but you still want to enjoy your money, if you take out 4% of your money year one, and then you take that same amount out for the rest of your retirement, the odds of you running out is very slim. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have $1 million. 4% of that is $40,000. The 4% rule says, look, you can take out $40,000 year one and $40,000 increased by inflation year two, etc., for the rest of your retirement, and the odds of you running out are basically zero. It's very, very low probability you'd ever run out. It's very conservative, okay? However, the 4% rule assumes you're investing at least 50% of your money in the stock market, in things that'll actually get some growth over time. So if you're too heavy in G Fund, if you have too much over there, and you want to take withdrawals, let's say even like the 4% rule, which generally is conservative, you're taking on more risk. That your money simply over time isn't going to keep up with your withdrawals, with inflation. And so again, it feels so good in the short term, but mid to long term, it's a guaranteed loss. Guaranteed loss. So that is a problem with the G Fund. Now, what's the alternative? Some people say, look, I get it. The G Fund's not perfect, but I don't want to take any risk. Well, let me explain a strategy that allows you to kind of get the best of both worlds, gets you the growth you need, but also the stability you need at the same time. Let me explain. So generally speaking, it makes sense to have some of both. It makes sense to have some money in the G fund, in some safe investments, but to have some money in investments that are going to get some growth over time. You need a balance. And if you have a good balance, when, let's say, the markets are having trouble, let's say things are down, you've got the safe money you need to continue taking the withdrawals you want to enjoy your retirement. But over time, you also get the growth you need to beat inflation and things like that. Now, if you want to get details on how you should be investing in retirement to make this strategy happen, actually know the details of how this works, I've got whole videos on how to invest in retirement, so definitely go check those out. But that's the core philosophy, is you got to have a nice balance between having some safe investments that are there for you consistently, but also getting investments that are going to get the growth you need so that you secure your retirement now, but also for however long you live as well. So I hope that is helpful. I'll see you guys in the next video.